Hey, what's up, friends? This is Robert Lowe again, and I am going to try to tackle a couple of questions here from the survey. I've got here: how does the grid work? Where does our main source of energy come from? What do we actually see? What do we not see? Where does the pollution come from? And how is electricity delivered? I'm going to try to tackle these questions here. I actually wrote this really long script, but I went back and I caught myself trying to abridge it. Though I abridged it, it lasted me like 20 minutes just to read it. That was one thing, and I'm like, oh no, it's just too much. So I'm going to try to put this in as simplest terms as I can. Put this in as simple terms as I can. I'm going to try to talk as if I'm talking to kids, or maybe 10 to 16-year-olds. That way, it's easy to understand. So, how does the grid work? Where does our main source of energy come from? What do we actually see? What do we not see? Where does the pollution come from? How is electricity delivered? All right. Now, our main source of energy comes from dirty energy, usually created by natural material or fossil fuels or natural raw material like coal, oil, gas, nuclear material, etc. Now, there are almost 8,000 operational power plants in the U.S. alone. Now, what we actually see, all right, is parts of the transmission system and the substations or the distribution system. When I say the transmission system, you're on the highway and you see these big, giant electrical poles, I'm not really poles, but this big giant electrical looking thing with big giant power lines. That would be part of the transmission system where power plants add large amounts of energy onto the grid and send it to substations. All right. You also see things like smaller power lines in the cities. That would be part of the distribution system, transformers, part of the distribution system. So that's what we actually see. What we do not see is what it takes to power the entire grids. Yes, and with that actually I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. What it takes to power the grid, the energy that's being lost, etc. What you're actually paying for. We can probably talk about that either tomorrow or later on tonight or tomorrow. Okay. Now, where does the pollution come from? Well, just every power plant, whether it generates electricity by coal, gas, or nuclear material, it all gives out some form of pollution. But however, our biggest source of carbon pollution would be coal. Now I'm going to focus on a lot more on coal, mainly on coal as I go through these videos, because coal is the largest source of carbon pollution we have here on the earth. Yes, it comes from the processing of raw material. From its digging up coal, transporting it, crushing it, pulverizing it, processing it, then burning it to create energy. So that's where most of the pollution comes from processing these raw materials, which is a very insufficient process. Extremely insufficient, and we'll talk about that later. Now, next question is, how is electricity delivered? All right, no matter where the source of energy is generated, wherever the grid, whichever grid, it still has to be delivered from the same source, or delivered through the same process. And it comes from power plants. Then it has to be stepped up to a voltage that's strong enough to where it can travel long distances on our transmission system. Again, part of our transmission systems are those big power lines that you see stretched across country. When you're traveling on the road, you can actually see that. Then it's delivered to our neighborhoods and our business. Then when it's delivered to our neighborhoods and businesses, it's stepped down to a voltage that's safe for our homes and businesses. And like I said, this process of generating electricity and delivering it is extremely inefficient. I mean, extremely. So, there you go. There is how does the grid work? Where does most of our energy come from? What do we actually see? Where does the pollution come from? How is electricity delivered? So there you go. And that was in very lame terms. Now right here, I've got this whole thing written out, all this tech information written out that I was going to say, but nobody really wants to listen to that. So I try my best just sitting here and try to condense all the information into simple terms. So hope that helps.